Good morning, everybody. How are you doing on this fine, sunny English morning? Can't believe it. Sunshine. Yes, and I say that from my Manchester flat. Sunshine. We are back here discussing all the latest rumours circulating, surrounding, immersed with Leeds United, and I'm keen to get your guys' thoughts on everything that is going on at the minute. Before we start the video, everybody, please make sure you're smashing the like. Make sure you're commenting. As always, I do read every single comment, and subscribing to the One Leeds Fan Channel. If this one goes a little bit further in terms of rumours, the guy that we're going to speak about today, I will be doing a scouting profile, which will be live on the Patreon very, very soon. Depends how quickly this moves. But yeah, Leeds United interested allegedly in several players. There's a lot of movement that's been spoken about still going out of the club, but quite reassuringly, there's not been as much chat about players leaving the club this week. Yes, we're not Exodus settings. All of a sudden, it seems to be a little bit more calm, tranquillo. All of a sudden, which is quite nice, even though Leeds United have pretty much got rid of about 14 players. So at some point, it has to stop. It has to stop. I'll get into a few of your comments before we start the video, everybody, but I hope you're having a great morning. Good morning, Connor, says Ethan. Morning from sunny Hereford. How you, mate? Morning, Connor, says Ben. Morning, Connor. Managed to catch you live for once. Yeah, Drew, sometimes it happens, mate. Sometimes it happens. Morning, Connor. Morning from Oz. Hey, James. Greetings from Malaysia, says Shah. Good morning, Connor, from a sunny Bournemouth. Oh, Steve, we don't want to hear about Bournemouth anymore, mate. I'm sick of hearing that team name. Bournemouth, bloody Bournemouth. But let's get on with a few of the outgoing, shall we? And we'll get to the crescendo at the end of the video. So at this moment in time, it looks like Brentford are displaying their interest in one Luis Sinisterra. There's apparently a lot of understanding that what Brentford want is a loan to buy. There's other sources reporting that it is going to be a permanent deal if he was to go. This would sort of make sense for me. You know, London Living, a good club, a very, very well-run club. You know, Premier League, obviously, with high ambitions, probably similarly to a Brighton or similarly to a Aston Villa in terms of what they want to do as a long-term project. I get it, and I understand it. You know, Brentford have had a good start to the season as well. 2-2 draw at Spurs. Against Spurs, and a 3-0 win over local rivals Fulham. You got to think they're doing this without Ivan Toney as well. They probably need attacking reinforcements. It does make sense. Obviously, it's not that archetype number 9 as you would think that. You know, obviously Ivan Toney is, and someone like Sinisterra wouldn't be replacing that. But in terms of goals, this is doing a really good job at the minute. And in terms of goals, Luis Sinisterra would obviously contribute to that. We all know it's that Prem move, which I think is going to be enticing for him. I think we're all sane enough also to understand that he will have been touted out by his agent. I think that's very, very naive to not think so. I think there's going to be a lot of clubs that are probably maybe aware of Sinisterra's predicament at this moment in time, and I will be very, very surprised if he was still a Leeds United player come the end of the window, to be honest with you, especially with all the chaos that has unfolded in terms of him, you know, potentially not training and all this sort of stuff. There's a lot of people saying that, you know, it's a knee injury, but yeah, you just don't know, do you, at this moment in time. So yeah, interesting, very interesting. I think cash wise, you're probably looking at 20 million and above, aren't you? If it's a loan, that would be crippling. It really would be. And once again, it is balancing FFP. 100% of the wage is probably going to be off the books. But for me, that would be a big blow if you send Luis Sinisterra out on loan. You know, he is a prized asset. You want finance for him as you got finance for Tyler Adams. But as I mentioned previously, everyone, Angus Kinnear has stated that Leeds, prior the Nonso potential transfer, which still may go ahead, and prior the Sinisterra money, which we may still get, and prior the Tyler Adams money we got, that Leeds have 30 million quid in cash kitty. So we're expecting something, and I'm expecting something this week. Obviously, we've got Ipswich coming up, which is going to be probably top 3 toughest games, especially at Portman Road, where Leeds don't have the greatest record in the Championship calendar. And I'm going to take a big bonus because I said Ipswich would be up there at the start of the season. I got hammered for it. But there we go. Yeah, so I do think Leeds need reinforcements before that game. And I think there is probably going to be a bit of a reaction by a lot of Leeds fans after this Ipswich game if we are not to get players in, because I think it is going to be very, very evident against Ipswich. I mean, we all know where the holes lie anyway, but there are going to be even more holes that lie in even different places for me, or they're going to be exasperated against Ipswich. So, yeah, Leeds seriously need to get players in as soon as possible for me. Could we get a fee with a loan and mandatory fee to buy? Potentially, Render. Yeah, I think I'd just like one outright, to be honest with you. He came from Football Insider, Connor. It's not a good source. Yeah, I mean, I was speaking about Josh Sargent the other day and him potentially moving to Leeds United, and Football Insider were ones to report that. And like everyone's correctly saying, Football Insider get way more wrong than they get right. The Josh Sargent one's an interesting one, though. An interesting one because him and Farke have a very, very good relationship, and Farke pushed hugely for his move to Norwich when the club owners weren't sure on the deal whatsoever. That was all Farke, that deal. So that one does make sense. That one would make sense more than a Kenny McLean, which I saw the other day, who I think Norwich would be a little bit annoyed to lose, to be honest. Obviously, they like him down there. He seems to be putting in some decent performances. And at the minute, right at this moment in time, who are you going to rather be with, Norwich or Leeds, with the start of the season that they've had in comparison to us, you know? Steve says, morning, Connor from York, the Kingdom of York. Hey, Stephen. Morning from Melbourne, Sam. Oh, Melbourne. Melbourne, what a place. What a place. Take me back. Let's have a look at some of what else you guys are saying. We won't be for this player. No chance we'll make it this obvious after the Irons deal. Jordan, it doesn't matter. I was saying this several times. Leeds aren't some sort of like 007 operation. We're not some sort of like Bourne Identity, Jason Bourne type, setup. At the end of the day, if another club, and it has come from Argentina, and we're going to get onto this individual in a little bit, but, just because it's not reported from the Leeds side doesn't mean that it's not real. I would urge all of you to look at the breaking news of some of our fantastic journalists, fantastic journalists, who they are. A lot of what they're saying cites other journalists, quotes other journalists, as pers other journalists. So just because it's not from the Leeds side doesn't mean it's not happening. Look at all the breaking news stories that our side has broken. It's not been a lot this season, and when you listen to some of them talk on podcasts or whatever, it's now just opinion. It's not breaking news. It's like what I'm doing right now. It's just opinion based. Oh, Leeds need to sign some players because it'll help them out later on. Okay. Any breaking? No breaking news. Right. Okay. And that's not their fault. But I would hark on the side of caution with just not believing anything else from anywhere else because it's not the established Leeds United journalists, because that I think a lot of the breaking news that's happened with regards to Leeds, even if it has just been high interest, has broken from the other side, if that makes complete sense. Hope it does. Yeah, exactly, Vega. Niners don't leak. Leaks coming from agents and other clubs dealing, and that will always happen. That's never not going to happen. So it doesn't matter if people get upset about the Aarons deal. It is what it is. That's football. That is football, Right, okay, let's get into some other news. Kamara. A lot of people talking about Kamara, obviously, at Rangers. There's been a $5 million price tag on his head. Beale's essentially said that. Michael Beale, Rangers manager, said initially that he's not going to be coming to Leeds. He said he'd heard nothing from Leeds United, which could be true. Apparently, Southampton, Middlesbrough, and Leeds are in the race for the midfielder. As I said, £5 million. I think that'd be a really good acquisition in the Championship. I don't think he's not a world beater. If you're giving me an option of Kamara and Lewis O'Brien, I think they're fairly similar profiles. I'd be taking Lewis O'Brien all day, and I still don't understand why this guy hasn't moved to another club. I've no idea why Leeds just aren't going balls to the wall for him, but it is what it is, I guess. There must be reasons behind that. But yeah, Glenn Kamara, I think, will be a good acquisition Championship level. Hence why you've got two very decent clubs aside from Leeds who are in for in for him. Also, Nat Phillips, another one which keeps churning up. Phillips, I don't know. You know, when you've seen the addition of someone like Joe Rodon, and you look at him and you think that is perfect. Like, I'm so happy with the Joe Rodon addition. Really, I'm really happy with that. I see Nat Phillips and I'm like, it's just a really reduced version, like a little version of Waitrose Joe Rodon. Do you know what I mean? Like, different, but different in all the best ways when you're favouring Rodon. Like, and you know, when I'm comparing them here, it's just because of the profiles that Leeds have gone for. And I really like the fact that Rodon is a ball player. He's an advancer on the ball. He could play in midfield, in my opinion. I think he's that decent in possession. Obviously, we're not going to move him there, but I'm saying he's got that technical ability. And I think Nat Phillips is just a bit of an aggressor. He's a bit of a ball winner. Yeah, I just don't. I'm not massively sold on him. Glenn Kamara is another one who I think would be decent, as I've just said, at this level, but I'm not hugely sold on these two. Rodon and Ampadu, I was straight in there instantaneously. And to be fair, like George said, maybe it isn't. Maybe we're not getting the true facts, and maybe Leeds aren't in for these players. But it seems to be there has been a lot around Leeds being interested in these players for many months now. So it's going to be interesting to see what the conclusion is this week. There's been a lot of talk, allegedly, about signings happening midweek and a couple coming in and all this fabrication that you see online. But it could be true. You know, no smoke without fire. Connor Phillips nowhere as good as Rodon. No. Justin, nothing. And can I say I also shop at Lidl? Absolutely nothing wrong with it, mate. I'd happily go with Nat Phillips to Lidl. Connor, why didn't you go for the director? Imagine this, Aaron. Imagine that. It wouldn't be a good combo, mate. But I do. You know, it's quite nice doing some of these things because I do think with signings, you know, I do think I've got a half decent track record when I've been on these videos. Hopefully, while you guys come back and see, you know, watch some of the stuff, which is quite nice. So another one that I want to throw into the mixer, I want to throw into that pit of Leeds United is John Joe Shelvey. I don't see how this one would work in a Farke system. And I'm pouring water on this transfer fire this morning, aren't I? But I'm being honest with you guys. I'm not getting involved in the hype. He's available. Apparently his agent is touting out lots of clubs in the Championship. Apparently there's been communication, and said rumours have said that Leeds are reporting, weighing up going in with an offer. Why would be my question. And how would this fit in a Daniel Farke system, which is all about dynamism, energy, physicality? I don't see where he fits in that side. I don't see how his energy at his age and at his stage in his career now benefits Leeds. His wage packet is going to be very, very high after Leeds have just gone down and slashed 60% off each player in the wage budget or sold. Is he the type of player, because he will be, to invest in, to be one of the higher earners at Leeds United? I don't know enough about him, but from what you've read, the attitude's not always been spot on, and the fitness also hasn't been spot on if you're to listen to previous managers. I think he's a guy, when I've always watched Shelvey, he's a guy who gets the ball from deep and distributes. A lot will discuss sort of a Calvin Phillips influence there, which obviously is very complimentary to someone like John Joe Shelvey, but I feel you need to have more to your game in this Daniel Farke system. I don't think it's all about just dropping between the two defenders, getting it and roofing it with your right foot, either left or right. Some people might think that's a big a big benefit, but I just think that he needs to have more components to his game than just dropping deep, getting the ball and launching it. And I will be really reductionist with him. I do think that's the main thing when it comes to John Joe Shelby. A lot of people will naturally say, because he's played however many games, he's a leader and a captain and experienced. I just don't really see that. I don't really see that on the pitch, even when he's played a leader, someone who's, barking at players or even just going around giving youngsters advice. When I see Shelby, and this is just from my perspective, I always see a man who, when the going gets tough, his head goes down. That's always what I've thought with Shelby. Now, I remember being in a League One game, not playing in a League One game, but I remember being at Ellen Road on a freezing cold January day, I believe it was. And it was the first time, it was when John Joe Shelby was making his come up. And he was he was playing for Charlton at the time. I think they drew with Leeds at Ellen Road. I think it was 1-1 that game. Let us know if any of you were there. 1-1 it was. And he was exceptional. But I know he's gone to Liverpool. And I know he's gone to Newcastle. He's made the best out of his career, of course he has. But I think in terms of development on the pitch, I don't really think he's elevated as much as people expected him to. And I just don't know if he is the right fit. Once again, if you're offering me him or other midfield alternatives in that pivot, I'm going for other alternatives. Be interested to know what you guys think on that, John Joe Shelby. All right, Kevin. Why are you not, mate? Let us know. I remember that game. Marcus, it was awful, mate, wasn't it? It was so cold. I had about 4 pairs of gloves on. There was another lad for Charlton as well. They had 2 up-and-comers, and Shelby was one of them. And there was another one. There's a little football knowledge quiz for you guys. They had 2. John Joe Shelby, words, agent will be talking to Leeds to build up interest. Can't believe this isn't anything more than paper talk. Yeah, you're probably right, JGZ. I'm interested because there's been a lot of speculation. On Shelby coming to Leeds, and there's been a lot of split opinion. I'm going to fester on that, says JP. There you go. So I think it's split. Shelby, to be fair, we played Forest at ER last year. He came on and made a difference. Yeah, he has done for Newcastle against Leeds as well. He has made a difference, but I think a lot of it was the chaos of the Bielsa system and maybe not nullifying him a little bit. That's why I couldn't go, mate. I couldn't go. Imagine me and Luke Ayling. I was growing up in the 70s, 80s. Don't remember players get injured at all, really. I know they must have, but not like today. I guess a lot of it's the volume of games, mate, isn't it? To be honest with you. But then again, back in the day, there was still a lot of games and a lot of crap pitches. This Shelby potential signing just shows the mess Leeds are in when it comes to new players in the future of Leeds. Yeah, I wouldn't get too down on it, mate, to be honest with you, because I'm not 100% sure how serious it is, how legitimate it is. But let's get on to the main man. Facundo. Oh, no, honestly, I was so excited for this because I thought, Connor, should you do a pre-record or a stream? Because you're going to butcher his second name. And I've actually seen this guy play twice because I was reporting on City for one of them and he was playing and he was very, very good. And I remember watching him against, for Brighton, when he came on. I believe he came on against Southampton at home. But he's called Facundo Buenanotte. So for now on, we're going to call him FB or Facundo. I've just called him Fanundo. What's wrong with me? I'm tired. Leave me alone. Facundo. We're going to call him Facundo B or Buenanotte. So yeah, we're going to speak about him today. Interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Now, I've spoken to a guy that I know on the Brighton side, lad called Charlie Hoff. Go follow him if you don't already. Charlie's a lovely lad, very close to what goes on the Brighton side of things. I will ask someone else I know who does work down there as well today and get back to you guys if there is anything advanced with this. But from the Argentinian side, which is where Facundo is from, the 17-year-old, there has been rumours that have sparked up out of nowhere. Now, let me preface this with, once again, I know a lot of people will not believe this until our journalists say something, but bear in mind when you are getting just a random rumor like this, when De Zerbi has said that he's not willing to loan him out, but he's not sure at all. I think this is a very odd link to just make up out of nowhere. They're not going to sell him. because they bought him from Rosario last season, I believe it was, with interest from everywhere, including said team that I work and report on, Man City. Man City were looking at him, but obviously they made a little bit of a U-turn and put all the focus into another Argentinian who I don't need to go on about on this video. A young Argentinian, obviously, who plays in the offensive line. So, yeah, played under Carlos Tevez, who compared him to Messi. Left-sided player who can play centrally, can play in central midfield as well. Excellent in the defensive phase, picks up the ball deep and roams forward. Very much when I was watching him against City of the Bernardo Silvas, where Bernardo Silva just pops up everywhere, left, right, centrally, forward line, false nine, drop between the centre backs, picking the ball up, confident wherever he is. Excellent on the half turn, fantastic on the half turn, mainly obviously on his left side because he's predominantly left footed. So profile wise, excellent, absolutely excellent. And as I say, a whole host of clubs were in for him prior Brighton getting his signature. Brighton paid £10 million for him last season. Now you look at his age, that is massive for Brighton. We all know that Brighton are the Del Boys of the continental sphere. They will go out and get a bargain for next to nothing. Next to nothing. Now, this player, when you look at his capabilities, I should say, plural, is very good. Very, very, very good. Technically gifted, IQ high, really, really high football IQ for his age. And as I say, can play sort of anywhere along that three in behind the striker. So this makes a hell of a lot of sense. It really does. And what I also love about I've only seen it, as I say, I've only seen him for about 60 minutes in 2 games. But his progressive runs was something that stood out. Anytime he got the ball, forward. Anytime he got the ball, forward. This Leeds United team are drastically missing a connector from the midfield to the attack. Massively missing a connector from the defence to the midfield. Someone who can drop deep, create space for others. This team is massively missing innovativeness and guile. Now that's exactly what Facundo's got. But Connor, I hear you cry. He's not 29 with 300 appearances under his belt. Correct. He's not. He is a young 17-year-old who's barely been exposed to any first team minutes. But is that the only way that a championship side like Leeds United can get someone like him? With his ability, with the reputation that he has, with the transfer value that Brighton paid for him last season, with the rave reviews De Zerbi has been giving him, with the fact that De Zerbi doesn't... There's no way I think he's convinced on letting him out. This is all about Facundo. It's all about him wanting to leave and play maybe 40, 50 games. That's the problem right now when you're looking at it, because De Zerbi said 3 weeks ago he didn't want to loan him out. 2 weeks ago he was mentioning that he may go. A week ago there was discussion that if he wants to play more games, he's going to have to go out on loan, because you look at Brighton's side and it is stacked. Now, the interesting thing from a Brighton perspective is when you're looking at Julio Enciso, he bided his time, waited for Trossard to move on, bided, wasn't let out on loan, bided his time. Obviously, it wasn't a massive amount of time from when he signed for Brighton, but he learned a lot, and you could tell that, being part of that Brighton setup, probably, getting a bit of tutoring from someone like Trossard, obviously experienced, and now he's just a magnificent footballer, isn't he? I thought when you saw Facundo, especially when he was playing, it's another, against City, Newcastle, Southampton, he's exactly what Enciso was, and Brighton have done it again. And I just wish we were a club like Brighton who were able to do that sort of business, because they just get bargain after bargain after bargain from South America, from Africa, whatever. But anyway, by the by, there's no chance we sign him. In my opinion, long term, no chance. He's too good, and he's probably one of those players who you fall in love with. Like's going to happen with Joe Rodham, and we know that. So, to conclude, would this be a good signing for Leeds United? I think it would be an excellent signing for Leeds United. I think as an advanced playmaker, box to box, someone who can definitely go central because of his technical ability on the ball, picking up the ball deep. And it is so obvious, in my opinion, that he is the sort of Caicedo replacement. I think Brighton would play him a little bit deeper than we would play him. But I think he has that capabilities, as was seen at Rosario, as was seen when he's featured for Argentina. He can play in that advanced role. And you look at Buendia when he was signed by Norwich, 21. Elias Chair, when he was signed by QPR, 17. Of course, Elias Chair didn't have that game time in the season that followed, like someone like Buendia did when he joined, because probably there's a 4-year age gap and you don't want to cripple them. But if Facundo's already made his Argentina debut, if he's already playing for Rosario in Argentina in the first team, if he's already played for Brighton in the first team, why on earth can't he play for Leeds United for an extended period of time? I completely understand the worry about him not being experienced. I completely understand the fact that I've talked about Archie Gray being too young and us needing experience around him. But I think when you've got someone who's that good and who De Zerbi, one of the best managers in Europe right now, isn't sure about loaning him out at all. If Leeds can get him, I think just age goes out the window at that point and you just play him and he becomes the focal point. Not a Pablo Hernandez, not a Buendia, a very different player in my opinion. Quicker off the turn, drives at the defence, but he is that cam position. So yeah, he could be our Cameron Archer. Yeah, obviously he's a different player, mate. He's a different player, but yes, 100%. Gibbs White and McAtee, unknown names before the Championship loan spells, and from an amazing recruitment setup as Brighton as well. You're right, James. You are right. And I think with what we've seen with Archie is he's magnificent and he doesn't look out of place. The problem with Archie is because he's our player, and I think, obviously, with him being, I'm going on Sentiment FC now, but with him being a Leeds lad, he doesn't want to leave. He doesn't, you'd hope that he's going to stick with us for a little bit, especially until maybe he's 19, 20, then you're probably going to get a City coming for him, aren't you? But I think the difference is with Archie is you don't want to burn him out this season. You want him to have aid around him because you don't want to hinder his development for being a Leeds United player. The difference with Facundo is there's no way we're getting him. No way. And I'd be stunned if Brighton put in a loan deal that we'd have an option to buy. I'd be really surprised. I'd be buzzing. But once again, it's an option. It's not an obligation. But an option to buy in there, I'd be really surprised with how much De Zerbi likes him and how much they paid for him so recently for such a young player. But I wouldn't be as bothered, and this sounds awful, but at hindering his development because he's not a Leeds player. You know what I mean? So the fact that he's at Brighton, the fact that Brighton get everything right in terms of signings, they don't miss Brighton. So if you're able to get someone like him, there's endorsements from one of the greatest coaches in Europe right now. An endorsement from Brighton nowadays is huge. The last Brighton player we had was pretty damn good. And for me, this has the hallmarks of a true rumour because it's not an obvious agent leak. Like Shelvey is obvious, right? Shelvey is completely obvious. He needs a club. Who we're gonna put? We're writing an article. Who we're gonna put in there? We're gonna write a tweet. Who we're gonna put in there? A championship club. Who's the biggest championship club? We'll put Leeds in there. It'll get clicks. The thing with Facundo is there's no discussion of him leaving on loan right now. There's no discussion of him leaving Brighton right now. As I said, the club loves him. So this has just come out of nowhere. That's why I think there could be something in it, to be honest with you. What if Brighton puts an option to buy with a buyback clause? Yeah, I don't know, Nicky, to be honest with you. But for me, there's just no way we get him. There's no way we get him. And I think it's a pointless conversation because of how much they rate him. And if you got to think, if you're Brighton, and Enciso at some point is going to leave, Julio Enciso, and look, guys, we don't even have the player yet, but if Enciso leaves, the next one in line is going to be Facundo. That's how Brighton work. It is that sort of, okay, well, you're going to go. And Enciso's probably going to go for 70 million. What we'll do is we'll replace you again with Facundo, who we have in our development, who we spent 10 million on when he was 16. He's not just going to come to Leeds. It's not going to happen for me. So what I'm trying to say is the best thing that a loan doesn't bother me at all. If you can get him in, central attacking midfielder, the beauty of him being young is he's going to be raw. He's not going to be afraid of anything. This Ellen Road crowd, which we all talk about and is a thing. He's played for Rosario. He's played for Argentina. And he's played for Brighton. Who still get decent crowds, very decent crowds. Obviously, you look at their area, they get a very, very decent crowd numbers. So he's not going to be afraid whatsoever of putting on that Leeds shirt. And I think all these characteristics, all these things are tick boxes. The problem is the inexperience, understandably, but I'm willing to sacrifice inexperience in a central attacking midfield role because it's free. And I like that. I think in a central attacking midfield role, you need to be raw. You need to be expressive. You need to be creative. You need to be innovative. You know, go out there and show us what you've got. It's more of a problem when you're really working as a, let's say, defensive unit, like a back 6 or 7, where you really have to work as a unit and you can't express yourself as much. You look at that Daniel Farke system, the back 7 works as a unit. Then they'd give it to Buendia, and Buendia would express himself. And he would have a fantastic player in front of him in Timu Pukki, who's an assassin. So that central attacking midfield role, yes, you have to work for the team. Of course you do. But you have that expression where, you know, you have that free role, in my opinion. So I'm not as bothered about him being younger in that role. If we were to go out and sign a centre-back who was 17 years old and we were looking at starting him, I'd be worried then, 100%. Maybe, as I've mentioned before, but signing the left-back who was 17 years old, I'd be worried then. The cam position, for me, I like the fact that they can express themselves and they're raw. Render says, Brighton aren't letting him go. We can't afford him. He's potentially Sky. That's it, Render. Of course we can't. But let's in... Well, I'll sound like Neil Warnock then. Go out and enjoy yourself. Let's enjoy ourselves when it comes to him if he does sign, because he's going to be a fantastic player if we get him on loan. You've seen how... Listen, in that West Bromwich Albion game, we had Budget FC out. I mean, we've already seen the club doing the spotlight on Jamie Shackleton. Christ alive. The spotlight Twitter series on Jamie Shackleton, which leads you to think that the propaganda's in full swing. But that front four, the back 7 was actually, it wasn't a difficult game for Leeds. It really wasn't. Their goal shouldn't have stood. We defended really well. You saw a partnership with Roden and Strout. It was fine. Byram is doing okay at the minute. Let's see how he is 15 games down the line. It still pisses me off that he can't open his body and use his left foot to give Leeds more width. He's constantly inverting because he hasn't got a left foot. Luke Ayling, he's Luke Ayling. I'll never be convinced on him. But Gray and Ampadu. Gray's been fantastic. Ampadu's been exceptional. That back 7 can suffice and survive. Will suffice for a longer period. We still need to add to it, but it will survive for a longer period. The issue is how dead that West Brom rearguard was, and we had nothing to pick the lot. Nothing. No central attacking midfielder to pick that lot. You know, Samu Saiz, Pablo Hernandez, we destroy them the other night. Destroy them. Because you can put chance after chance and after chance on the plate of players like Gelhardt, James, and they can miss. They can miss because you're going to get another 4 or 5 big chances in the game because of how good our cam is. You put someone like Facundo in there who has the technical ability of a top 6, top 8 Premier League side, even at the age of 17, he's going to aid us going forward massively in this division. And he's going to be, in my opinion, someone with that technical ability in, I think the Championship is competitive, of course, but I think a lot of the defensive rear guards are stuck in the mud. I think he's too much for them, even at his age. So it makes sense. And then with a 10, you have to go get a 9. Right now, Leeds United's priority, even though we need them, isn't a left back. It isn't a centre back. It isn't a central midfielder. Leeds' priority right now has to be a number 9 and a number 10. And if it's not, we're going to get absolutely drilled at Ipswich. Absolutely drilled. Because the issue is, when you look at it the other night, when you dominate in a game, you cannot execute the game plan, which is to score more goals than the opposition, because you are so tepid up front. You're so meek up front. It's easy to defend. When you've got Leeds players in front of you, because none of them run behind that defensive line, maybe aside from James and the fullback, when you've got Leeds attackers in front of you, no problem. No problem. Even for a bang average West Brom defence like it was. So Leeds need a 9 and they need a 10. Someone who can score goals and someone who can pick the lock. Really simply, a Buendia and a Pukki. Really simple. And if we don't get that, we are going to struggle, because Leeds might be on top in games, but it doesn't matter, because the likelihood is we're not going to be able to score unless it's maybe a corner or a set piece or something, any set piece or something like that. From open play, this team are going to struggle massively. So a 9 and a 10 is imperative right now. And then you can, towards the end of the window, get a centre-back in, a central midfielder in, or whatever. That's how it's got to go. Yeah, Darren says Facundo is wonder kid level. Is it even possible they let us loan him? Darren, I don't know, mate. I really don't know. And this is the thing. It's the De Zerbi thing, isn't it? I watched an interview that he did on, it was either last week or the week before, I can't remember. It just popped up because I have to basically crop loads of videos up for work. And he was on there. He's the first video on there, and they asked him about Facundo. I only got the back end of the press conference, but they were talking about, Brighton's positioning and where they're going to, what their expectation is, and the youngsters coming through. And he mentioned Alzate and Facundo potentially leaving on loan for their development. But that's come from Facundo, 100%. Because De Zerbi definitely want to keep him there, and he definitely wants to put him through that Julio Enciso mould, where he's waiting and he's learning as a youngster. But I think he also understands the benefit in sending a player out on loan, which I think there's a huge benefit in it. Sending a player out on loan, in my opinion, is still more beneficial than a player staying at said team and been on the bench and learning from others. I think there's more I think you get more experiences. You're not as comfortable as you are at your parent club. There's different circumstances. You might be at a lower level as you would be at Leeds, so you have to do different things. You have to adapt in certain ways. There's massive benefits to going out on loan and playing 40, 45, 50 games, which you get at Leeds United. The issue is now, everyone, the issue is right now, if we are in for this kid, it's already blowing up over social media. We all know it's blowing up over social media. Now, this is how the Aarons deal went. And I know it was far in advance. But how will this go with other clubs? How will this go with other clubs? Are you suddenly going to get a surge of other clubs after him? And that's the problem. That is going to be the problem, but that's where Leeds have to get the deals done early. Oscar Bob off. Oh, God. What a question. Oscar Bob. I love Oscar Bob. And if you don't know who Oscar Bob is, search him on YouTube. Man City's under 21 player of the year, like 2 years running. He's going to be a baller. Norwegian. class. Absolutely class. He had Oscar Bob, but that's a dream. They won't let him out on loan. That's a fact. Rob says, you heard any more on Charlie Taylor? Phil says, keep an eye. I know, like, what does that mean? Keep an eye. You know? Do you know what I mean with the do you know what I mean with the journalists though? Flipping out, keep an eye. It's just do you know? You know what I mean? Do you really know? Keep an eye. Nothing yet, mate. Nothing yet. Yeah, nothing yet. It's up to the club. But I guess he's not wrong. Keep an eye, because you know it might have. But yeah, it's just as if anything's happening there at the minute. I don't think it is. Jay says, I think we have done well from the back so far. It's what we had to do, but I agree we need to strengthen the attack. 9 or 10 before the weekend. It would. You got to think as well, Jay, it's going to give the crowd a massive boost. It's the profiles that we need. 9 and a 10. And yeah, unfortunately, everyone, you go down to Portman Road with, this is where my head's at. You go down to Portman Road, and this has been a very positive stream, obviously, because I think it's a great target for Leeds. And we brought in 2 really good targets already in Roden and Ampadu, even though we need more. We go to Ipswich without a 9, without a 10, with the same team. And Farker probably knows this, and they're going to love it. You got to think it's Daniel Farker, ex-Norwich manager, won the league twice with Norwich. Look, they hate him down there as well. Leeds are coming to town. First time they've played Leeds in however many years at Portman Road. It'll be a sellout, as Birmingham was for their first home game against Leeds. It's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a real struggle. And they look good. They do look good so far. So if we're not able to put the ball in the back of the net and create open play chances, it's going to be a struggle, isn't it? It really is. Yeah, Josh, I don't think it's not any shade on him whatsoever. It's just how the club works. But I think the annoying thing from my side is anyone with any form of connection. Like, you guys know that I won't come in here and just lie. I can't be arsed with it. I've got nothing to gain from it. But if I hear something, I will come on here and say it. And largely, it's been pretty decent information. And I just think sometimes when I'm trying to provide that, sometimes when it's like, well, you're not so-and-so, you're not so-and-so. It's like, no, I'm not. But this is what I've heard, and it's pretty decent information. Do you know what I mean? And it is, and it has been decent information. So I think we know the sites to avoid. Of course we do. But if it's not, you know, if there are other people who have information, don't always just completely disbelieve them because it's not who you want it to be saying it, if that makes sense. Yeah, Wayne, I forgot about that. Click's reaction, yeah. David, who won the game? Who's top 3 in the championship? I was hearing this the other day about Plymouth. Plymouth have battered Southampton. Right, who won the game? We battered West Brom in all respects. Did we win the game? No. So it's massive, you know, 9 and 10 is huge. So, right, guys, we're going to leave it there. Listen, we're going to be back with the debrief later on. Make sure you tune in for that. Make sure you tune in. It's going to be myself, Gabe, Oscar. Got loads to discuss. We've got Facundo. We've got all the transfers. And we're going to be back at 7 o'clock tonight. Hopefully, you're buzzing for it. Hopefully, you can join me before you leave, guys. Make sure you slap a like on the video. Really appreciate your support once again. And let's hope Leeds can get this deal done. Have a good day, everyone. Keep happy, keep smiling, and I'll see you in a bit. Cheers.